Good morning, Terese.
Good morning, Edith.
Actually, it's my afternoon.
All right, good afternoon. So I don't know how to say that in Hebrew. I know Mishlamer.
Nice,
That good?
nice. So yeah, we are speaking with receptor 1. Yeah, you're in the States.
Very interesting time to be phoning it into receptor 1 for sure.
Yes, I agree. And we're doing exploring reality 11. And this time I'm so pleased to be doing it with you. Julia could not be with us now, but she will probably watch it very soon, because actually we are going to deal with a question that she asked.
Her question, yes, about the quarantine.
Yeah, Julia brought up the question, what is that date that started the global quarantine that we mentioned? And just to say that it's November 5, 2020. And I'll start my ramble and you come in whenever you want, yes? No rules here.
Okay.
So, yeah, well, remember the date I mentioned was October 14, 2012. And there seemed to be a lot of information in the world about something that would be happening at the end of 2012, the year 2012. The end of time, the end of the world, the end of this or that calendar. Yeah, there was a buzz about it, around it.
Yes.
But we look at things from their logical structure. So the year 2012 is the recreation of a universe based on 12. And this number also seems to be appearing in different places in the world from very ancient times, just to mention the tribes of Israel and Jesus' disciples and the months in the year, but also natural structures like the 12 cranial nerves.
Yes.
So before we go into it, let me try to make a certain distinction about space and time, because we are focusing on the structure of space-time, and you probably noticed it is called space-time and not time-space.
Yes, that is interesting.
Yeah.
Why is that specific?
Because space comes before time in the order of the unfolding of creation. But also we can find an example from our life. Since when you create space, it's actually the moment where you place a question, and a question is representing the opening of time. And when you ask a question, actually, you also answer it in our unconscious part, because the particle that was sitting as matter and antimatter that represents the answer will be located, will be placed in the future of that space that we opened. And therefore, creating space gives you time. You open time like this. If we place time before space, then we will always need to open time by a certain conflict. by a certain duality, by a certain problem that will have two polarities, and we will hold that open by holding the conflict going, the conflict charged, let's say. Yes, the moment you bridge and you find the solution to the conflict, time disappears.
Yes.
So opening space is for a purpose. Remember, we were saying that the creational mistake of the lowest plane, plane 1, is that we exist. And then we ask, okay, so what do we exist for? So because existence comes before the purpose, then we make our existence the purpose. And all our culture is built on the fact that the most important thing is to keep our existence, to maintain our existence.
And I think even within that, there is kind of like this rush to stay ahead of time within existence, even with our bodies and our aging and
right.
How we are constantly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I see that.
And it actually does create conflict when
it does. It does. It does. And at a certain point, if the conflict is solved, let's say that I die, then time collapses and is gone.
And so I just want to clarify, so time only exists because of space, because of the structures. Like once that happens, then
because time because time needs to be linear. Right. And in order to be linear, you need a beginning and an end. And in order to have a beginning and an end, you need to have either a conflict that holds, there are two parties and they one charges itself in the positive polarity and one charges itself in the negative polarity, or like in the creational order, there will be a purpose to open a space, and therefore question will start a linear space for the development of time till we get to the answer. And in that time, linear time, there will be a lot of new updating consciousness because of that development. As an example, we had, Julia and myself had a purpose to explore reality. So this is the purpose before the existence of this space. Until now, 11 meetings, right. 3 hours per meeting. So it's a time of 33 hours that we measure linearly in that space that we created with purpose before the existence. In a way, it's like proactively.
Yes.
Have time before, it's reactively. Yes, because you react, don't have a previous purpose, and they say black and you say white. In order to be proactive, or I can say, instead of using the word proactive, which is not very accurate, I say responding to anticipation, like animals do, as an example, when they respond to the anticipation of an earthquake before the physical event. Yeah, in order to be proactive, I need to be aware to the signals of anticipation. Yes. I'll give another example from daily life. Say with my partner, if we don't create a space for communication, for ongoing communication, then we will spend the precious time by being dragged into conflict. This will be the dynamic.
Yes.
Because our days are not a gift. We were told that our days are a gift, but they are actually a credit for the purpose of reporting back to the origin, the distortions of creation, which the origin cannot have a clue unless reported from the field. Say you are the void and you can't move and you can't do anything and you actually hold everything. You are the nothing and everything is in you. And if you leave your primordial state of holding, then caput, finito la creation, yes? There are no projects, no development, no new discovery. So the void, the void needed to go out of itself in a distorted way for a purpose. And it uses its capital for investment. It's not a gift, do with your days whatever you'd like. It's a certain contract, it's a certain deal. Like we use our capital for investment if we are clever, versus, you know, eating your capital in all kinds of adventures and no, you don't make any measurement of it, and you don't have any idea of what, let's say, even the discipline for investment needs to be very organized. Yeah, it needs a good administration, because I need to know, let's say, if I invested in several projects, I need to measure and see what kind of revenue is giving. Is returning from which project. Yeah, yes. When you run projects, you would like a report back of to know what is going on, what the action causes. It's a bit like now with the administration of the COVID-19. After the lockdown, they start to open and then measure if it's a good administration. Yeah. Then the ratio of contagion in each city, in each or around a specific event for the epidemiologic investigations.
Exactly. The response, it has to be carefully watched, like once you
yes, because you need to take decisions according to that information. Let's say to you know, close and lock down this city for another 2 weeks, or let's say not allow big events, let's say more than 100 people, and so on. Yeah. So in the sense, when you look at the space-time structures and you see the economic thinking behind it, planification behind it, it can't be that our days are a gift just for us to have a good time. So you can open space on purpose. Say, let's take your example now. Every 4 years, elections. We open the space, we put purpose before the existence, and that could be a very rich, enriching update of, let's say, the state's new purposes. Yes. But instead, we know what happens in election time and in the campaigns, that they get filled up with conflict, basically saying he's like that and she's like that and so on. Because if you don't have a clear purpose, then the only option is to oppose one another and speak about the others and invent all kinds of threats, yeah, that the others are dangerous because of that or that. It's a waste. It's a
It
total
is.
waste.
It's interesting too, that I've noticed this year in a different to see it through a different perspective. And the way that it's looked at is very much like a magnifying glass, because you have to watch what's going on, like in the country, and then they focus in very closely on these tiny sort of, every county, every district, and numbers. And when you're watching it, it's really interesting because the number that they are that is up front is this number 538, which is the number of like electoral votes. So it's interesting to have
Right,
a different perspective on something, to look at something
right,
that's 5 and 3 in synchronicity. Because
yeah,
if you had that perspective, you would think, wow, this is a wonderful time to get a consensus or an overview of what is actually happening, what is appearing in
yes,
this part of the globe. But if you don't have that perspective, it is a race to get to a number. It's different.
yeah, it's very different. I agree. Yeah,
Even the numbers are informing us that this could be a time of synchronicity, and it is
yeah.
instead it's a time of conflict.
Okay, so I'll go back to that date because there is much to say about synchronicity, as you mentioned, the number 8, because that day, the October 14, 2012, was the day 288 in the year, which means in the year you have 365 or 66 days. So that day is the day 288 of the year in the positive aspect. There's also a negative aspect, which is how many days are in the negative, still not given, still not appearing into existence, and this would be the number 78. So on that position in space-time, a member of the human species remembered the contract and started to speak on behalf of the species, because we do belong to a species first and then to humanity. In our reference system, these two are glued together and they almost like say the same. And that is why I separate them here, because as we become multidimensional or aware to our multidimensional belonging, there is an awakening of other dimensional perception. In the molecular, yeah, in the molecular realm, it is glued together, but in the atomic dimension, there are two different stages of the same process, but they're separate, and they indicate a different characteristic. So species first, humanity then second, and the 28 from the day 288, the 28 we already met in one of our explorations from the female cycle, which is connected to the moon, which is the nearest satellite. It's connected to the moon, and that's why a month, yeah, a month is that length. Now a satellite is not yet the bigger orbits of the galaxy. It's our, if you'd like, closest reference. But then there is another 8. So it's 28 and then another 8. And it says that the next 8 says that 28 is creating for itself a digital friend which helps it to merge into its next octave, or merge or open up a new synchronicity to the bigger orbits. That's 28 plus 8. And in the negative, it's 78, which is the error, the distortion, or at one point it was called the curl, like in the hair.
Right.
Curl. Because it is the original fastest observer receiving a report and then mixing the waters of non-existence and existence in order to call for an updating. And the global quarantine, it's something that it is not done, it's not publicly announced. It's not for respect and fame. It's not for publicity. It's not for money. It's not for power. It's not for any interest apart from its pure responsibility of moving up to do our part in the deal. And it was only made known to those resonating, because souls do resonate, and that's why some people might watch these explorations and not understand everything, but they feel a resonance, even though cognitively they can't explain or even sometimes repeat what is being said. And that's very natural, actually.
Yeah.
So there were these souls resonating, approaching, asking to understand, encouraged, and they encouraged the development to understand that it was an anticipation to do actually with year 2021, which we are approaching soon. Now 12.
A lot of anticipation about that.
Yes, it's 9 years. It's 9 years anticipation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now 12. It is a journey from having only one circuitry of duality. Yeah, one circuitry through which I see duality. And 21 is actually 12, but looked at as from the future. And it is a dual circuitry of the slowest plane. And it is not the same. I'll give an example. It's like having one route home. Yeah, so one way of dealing with reality. Versus having two simultaneous routes for the reality, and this already it's an hybridic consciousness. This is how you pronounce it in English, hybridic?
Hybrid.
Hybrid, yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. And now it makes you wonder, because now in the year 2020, everybody is speaking about hybridic learning and hybridic administration and all kinds of hybridic combinations that are totally new. Many, very few people spoke about it before. Oh. This year, all of a sudden, this word appears.
Yeah. Hybrid cars. It's a lot about
as well. Yes, as well. So this 9 years shift was anticipated much before year 2020. Nobody knew that year 2020 then would be like a stop because this is basically what we as a species are doing, are forced to do.
Yeah.
And manifests the onset of 2021. It's like 2020, it's a shake of all of the elements of reality in order for 2021 to start to put them together from a convergent logic in a different way.
You know, I was thinking also that it's kind of like, you know, I had to redo the electrical system in my house recently so that I could put a generator into my house. And it's kind of like, and whenever you have to put the generator, when you have to regenerate it, or if something goes wrong, you have to shut everything off first.
Yes.
And change the circuitry over to that.
Yes.
And that's what it feels like. It's like we have to shut down the circuitry.
That's
a
very good example. Yeah. Yeah, it's like also in the computer when you have a new update, then they tell you, okay, in order to restart it, you need to restart the computer.
Yeah.
So this global quarantine is not something that has been promoted. And the work on the installing the convergent logic is not something that promises anything to the receptors, come and be healed, or come and be intelligent, or come and don't feel pain, and all this. It's not. And this is how I understand it. That, but let me say. You might ask other people and they will explain it in a different way, because there is an interpretation going on via my receptor. And my receptor is 6th of October 1962, which makes me positive frequency 279. Living in 972 and born in 54, and all this matters.
Yes. Yeah.
There are more perspective, of course. Perhaps in the future we can host a colleague and with a different receptor and ask the same question and see the completing natures of different perspectives, which is what humans and nations will be doing more and more in the years to come, because think about it as well. It's not just that we stopped, but we are all forced to look at the same thing.
Right.
In a way, it's like an invitation to move from competition to collaboration.
Right, and we talked about competition being one of the 4 distortions.
Of plane 3. That's right. And I brought with me a certain quote from that receptor of Alejandra Casado. It's my translation to English, but she was asked about her identity. And her response was, I think this is from 4 years ago. She said as such: beyond the linear identity, the parents, the documents, etc., the surprise is what all this is becoming as it becomes functionalized with a lot of possibilities that no one ever imagined existed. But this is not exclusive to Alejandra Casado. The same thing happens to anyone born with a name and surname, responds to a certain context, and then is in each one awakening all the functioning that it can have with the rest of the universe, and that it can hold many surprises in terms of what the person can be transformed into. This possibility is open to all, and that is what we are sharing among all. An absolutely common person who, for certain reason, from a specific event, begins to functionalize a series of sequential events that then result in a transformation. Inside me, I feel that what is happening is bigger and bigger, more and more surprising. The surprise that happens to me about myself and my perspective of my past that keeps changing in reality and not in fantasy. So this is how Alejandra related to her identity when asked about it, and I think it very much demonstrates that we take a position, we can take a position that from that moment starts a sequential process of transformation. And we are definitely not changing in the linear identity in terms of, you know, I always will be someone who was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Mm-hmm. This will not change, but how its order in the developing identity, transforming identity. So the past will be changing because it will be aligned in a different way with my best future. And this is what the transformation does. It connects your slowest past with your fastest future. Or in the words of the logic or the law of physics, the question with the answer. The particle, the female particle with the male particle. And again, this is my interpretation. I'm sure other people will answer in a different way about what is actually a global quarantine. But it does give a certain clue to the nature of that happening and why we relate to it when we explore the structures of space-time.
Amazing. Yeah, you know, I was thinking that, you know, when you get a signal to update on your computer, you have different options. Tomorrow, right now, restart, remind me later. And that's it. Feels like we're getting the signal to up, and then it's actually a decision to choose that to download the new update or not.
Yeah, I remember one post in the Facebook that I saw. Remember that moment in Matrix when Nebulous, I think, comes with two pills, the blue and the red. It's the colors of today, yeah. And he says, with the blue, you will be able to go out the matrix and see from a different dimension what we have created. But if you take this other pill, you will not leave the matrix. You will stay and you will think this is reality, and you will be eating your steak and enjoying your steak, thinking that this is it, and so on. So the post that I saw just a few weeks ago was what I forgot to tell you is that that pill expires in 2020. So Terese, thank you very much for your time and companionship.
Absolute pleasure.
And we'll see each other. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.